everyone, this is Alex Chaparro, and I am here for the next edition of the Century 21 Circle Top Agent Podcast, affectionately called TAP. And I am here with an amazing agent, someone that I've had the privilege of working with for a number of years, Brendan O'Donnell. Brendan, welcome. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. And also, congratulations are in order. At Century 21, we give a shout out to the top 21 agents. You know, being a good Century 21, of course, we're going to riff on the number 21. We put the top 21 agents every month. And Brendan, you were high on that list, the top 5 within the top 5. So congratulations.
Thank you, again.
Yeah. So good work to you. And so, you know, I think that when a lot of individuals look at what it means to be a top agent and to be able to get to a recognition like this, you know, what does your month look like? What kind of activities and cadence and amount of work is happening to be able to get to a good month like this, to get that kind of achievement?
I think you put in perspective, it's not so much just 1 month of work as is like a building on a lot of older foundations, because each month will be different. You know, December is very different than July in this business. And so often for this month, you know, it's a lot of running around. It's a lot of, you know, making sure that buyers who are on their 8th offer get into a place as fast as they can so that they can make it happen on their 9th. It's a lot of doing quick turnover for the clients you have, making sure that they're all, you know, going to be satisfied, with each passing week. Whereas in November and December, it's a lot more of touching, you know, the sphere of people that you know and trying to set yourself up for a good following year.
That's amazing. So a lot of it is the setup and preparation. When you meet, and you know, I know that you're really good with working with both buyers and sellers, but let's just talk about the buyer. You know, what are some of the things that you do to help that buyer queue up and be successful, you know, in the prep before you even, you know, get out and open that first door for a showing? What's happening to get them to have the tools and preparation to be successful?
Yeah, because as you know, it's an incredibly competitive market out there in most of the submarkets around Chicagoland. So walking into a showing and expecting just to throw down an offer without any, you know, education or prep is just a recipe for wasting everyone's time. So in order to avoid that situation, I have a pretty standardized process for how a new buyer, once I'm introduced to them, we get in touch with them, where we go from there until we get to those first rounds of showings. And the process essentially starts with often someone will refer me to someone and they'll say, hey, this is my old realtor, Brendan. He's great. Can you reach out to my friend, colleague, whatever, cousin, and help them buy a house? And the first thing we'll do is set up an introductory phone call. Before we do anything else, I just want to hear where they are in the process, what is important to them, what their timeline is, very basic stuff that I just want to get to know kind of how they imagine this going, and also learn a little bit about them in terms of like experiences and things that they've, you know, encountered before. Have they bought a place already? Do they need to sell a place in order to buy a place? All these sort of things that will help me prepare for the next step, which is at the end of that phone call, setting up a buyer consultation. What that is just a relatively longer meeting, hour to 2 hours, where it's a sit down over a Zoom call or a sit down at my office or a coffee shop, depends on the buyer, but we sit down and talk through in depth, not just like the statistical criteria for entering a search into the MLS or, hey, I need a 2-bed, 2-bath condo and I want it to be, near a blue line. Okay, that's good to know, but it doesn't that won't help us when things get tough, and that won't help me help them, because they can just go online and just pop that into Zillow and have the same results as I can give them. So I spend a lot of time up front asking a lot of existential questions about why. So I start with like, why are we even sitting down? Why do you want to buy a house? Why are we doing this now and not last year, next year? What is the motivation to get this all going? And then from there, we go into the why of, why do they need 2 bedrooms? Oh, because I have an office and I want to work from home. Okay, well, that colors what that second bedroom is important for. Why do I want to live near the blue line? Okay, well, because I want to be, I don't have a car and I need to take the train into work every day. Okay, where's work? Why? How long do you want your commute to be? Things like that. And it's a very long, and sometimes, I'm asking the same questions over and over conversation, because at the end of the day, a lot of times people haven't always thought through every single aspect, and this is the time to do that. Because at the end of the day, we're looking to figure out what their priorities are. And then once I know their priorities, I know how to help them, because they may be really interested in learning all about how the difference between a 4-square and a cottage and a bungalow, or they may not care at all. In which case, all they want to know is is it going to be in the right school district? Okay, well, now we need to focus on that. From that conversation, we set up our search together. We see what inventory, looks like for what they're looking for. And we are looking at it together in that meeting. That way we know, hey, it's really rare and we're going to have to do some creative efforts to get to a place. Or it's time a dozen. Great, we got lots of choices. Now we know. And from there, we set up our next meeting, which is going to be our first round of showings. And the way I like to do that is give them between 5 and 10, and closer to 10 if at all possible, places to see on our first day out. Because what I don't want to have happen is we go see their favorite place and it's the best one. We only see that one. And then they're stuck thinking, well, the grass may be greener because I've only seen one place. So if we see 9 others that they also like but don't love, and they've looked through another 150 online that they also don't love but considered, then they know that this is 1 out of 150, and they already have the context, education to go into that that purchase and ready to make it happen, even if it's day 1, because by week 2, that one will be gone, because it's not going to likely be just their favorite place. And also, going back to that meeting, one other thing that we'll do is I teach them how to buy a house. So going through not only their search, but what goes into the actual process. So I'll talk through the different stages of the contract. What is a home inspection? What is an appraisal? What is earnest money? I don't expect them to remember everything. In fact, they're not going to, and it's fine, because the purpose is just so that they have less surprises and can ask more educated questions once we get down to those points of the transaction.
So you really painted out a picture of having a phone call, having a meeting, and it's really putting them in the driver's seat to be able to make decisions in a meaningful way. You've really prepared them, but there's a lot of prep work here. How do you feel when you look at a scenario where somebody would just make contact, whether it's a lead or a referral, whatever way it came to them, and they just start showing houses? And a lot of times this kind of thing that you're talking about, it happens like breadcrumbs throughout many showings, that you start to get the whole picture, and it can be, you can lose opportunities that way, certainly. But how do you feel? What is the, I guess what is the customer losing by going in without having all of these details checked off in the mind of the realtor?
Yeah, so I found myself in that situation in the past, and where you end up is having to circle back to all that stuff anyway, assuming that they are indeed, seriously wanting to buy something. Sometimes they just want to see places, and it's more exploratory, and that's fine and good. People should definitely do that, but that requires a whole different series of prep. So, for instance, in that situation where I call that person who was introduced to me, and they say, okay, well, yeah, I'm thinking about buying in 2 years. Okay, well, I have lots of advice to give them for how to prepare, but it's not the same as us sitting down for 2 hours and scheduling 10 showings. That won't help them. To say they won't remember any of that in 2 years is an understatement. So it's a different set of how I can help them. And that person, if all they want to do is go see a few places, I'm not able to even give them the correct advice. Going back to figuring out where their priorities are, I turn in those situations into a car salesman, which is just saying like, yes, this car has windows that go up and down. This one is red and this one is blue. I don't know what's important to them. So I don't know how best to give them advice on why this would be a good place or not a good place for them. Because every property works for someone.
You know, Brendan, I wanted to tap into something that you mentioned that really caught my ear. And we were talking about that, or you know, recognizing you for being on the top 21. And I said, can you tell me about what it takes to have a good month? And you said it's not about a good month. It's an ongoing process. So there are no good months or bad months. It's just creating a constant cycle or flow of activities that's going to drive your business. And so a lot of agents look at it from having good months and bad months. And there's this ebb and flows and sometimes if the ebb is too low, it could get them out of the business. So,
Sure.
So what are your thoughts as far as how do you keep that medium or cadence in your business where, you know, it doesn't have to be good or bad, but you're in business. So how do you keep that going? What's that mindset where you're not living in these ups and downs as a realtor?
Yeah, I will say to all the agents who find themselves in those up and downs, I'm not immune to them. When things seem to be going great and you are so busy you can barely handle it, yeah, you're like, I'm on top of the world, things are great. And then when no one's calling you for 2 months, you're like, okay, I guess I have to find a new job now. But the key to not having those thoughts be intrusive is picking a business model that you can commit to and trust to some extent. So figuring out what you're going to do and doing that, it could be even one thing, doesn't have to be a slurry of things, consistently. Because if you find that a thing you do does work and then you do it consistently, you're going to be able to rely on that, whether that be a specific marketing campaign or just a way of going about the business. But it can be a way of saying to yourself, okay, well, no one called me this week to buy a house, but that's okay because I know based on the last 5 years, if I keep doing the one thing that I'm going to be doing, then someone will call and it will be just fine.
That's amazing. So in terms of being able to have incremental growth, what are some of the things that you do to be able to raise the bar? Because I've seen you over the last year continually raise the bar, you know, kind of like the Kaizen approach, incremental growth. And it's moving step by step up. So, you know, you may have 1 month that maybe you did more than the other, but overall your business has had incremental growth despite market fluctuations. So what kind of mindset do you have to be able to continue to grow your business despite, you know, what's happening in the headlines and the economy?
I will say for me, it is the incremental growth has started a long time ago and has just been a smidge more every year, every month. And the way I've been able to do that is it's very much tied to the way I go about marketing myself, because I'm not the type of broker who is doing paid advertisements. I don't spend a lot of time or money and effort doing things that broadcast myself, so to speak. The way I would say a vast majority of my clientele is simply asking my last client to introduce me to someone that they know. And that creates a exponential effect, because what you end up doing is that one person, they may say, I don't know anyone. Okay. That person is 0 referrals, and that's okay. They're happy. They leave you a nice review. The next person is more of the, networking type, and they may send you 3 referrals. Then those 3 referrals, when they eventually close, may send you 1 to 3 of their friends.
Right.
And eventually you get to a point where that just base of people that you've worked with become your marketing department. I'll just throw a little anecdote in because it just happened this weekend. A client who I've worked with a few times, I'll go on a limb and say he likes me. He was taking a Uber to the airport, and his Uber driver commented on how nice his house was. And so they got to talking, and my client told the Uber driver, like, oh yeah, I had this great realtor. And the Uber driver said, oh, well, I'm thinking about selling my place in Lincoln Park and maybe about moving to the suburbs. And he said, well, here, take Brendan's number down and I'll make sure you have it right. And then you should text him. And lo and behold, they do. So I don't need to go and put my face on a bus sign, because I have, Joe client out there working for me because he's been that happy with my work in the past.
So that goes to, there's a lot of agents that feel that the prep that you do would be too much work, to have a phone call, to have a meeting, whether it's Zoom or live. So there's a lot of work that's going on. So you got to think about the correlation between the preparation and the education, and making sure that the expectation of what's going to happen is in alignment. Because I think that's an issue too. They don't know what to expect, and then it could turn out to be not a good experience because they didn't have the expectation. So you're doing all of that work, but look at how you've been able to incrementally increase your business despite the interest rates and whatever may happen in the headlines. You continue to grow, and with it all by referral. So I would have to say there's got to be a correlation to the front end, that you're doing it right.
It's exactly that. The effort put into the prep, the consultation, the education, that is essentially, that is the marketing, because I am giving them a solid experience that they can then say, I felt taken care of the whole way through. And then to tie it back into the other side of the marketing, which is getting those referrals, I tell them in the first meeting, and then again when they're under contract on their house, and then again when they close on their house, I ask them, I say, hey, I'm going to ask you for referrals. And then I do. And they expect it because I've already told them that's how I operate. And so when they get to that point and they're really happy and they have their new house, and I say, hey, just a reminder, got any friends who are looking to buy a place and you think that I did a good job, please put us in touch. Yeah. And so that it's a self-fulfilling situation, because they already knew that was coming. They had a good experience. Then I asked them again, and then they referred me. So that, to answer your question, is essentially that whole thing of doing all that work for the client, it serves 2 purposes. One, the client ends up having a better experience, and they're more likely to then be my marketing department.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I had achieved certain goals, some hard goals that I had been working on. And somebody had asked me, well, how did you accomplish that? And what I had said to them is, in life, there's a lot of room for individuality and personal preference and, just doing things the way you like. However, there's certain elements of success that you cannot negotiate with. And it seems like to be successful and have a high client, satisfaction is to be disciplined on the front end and don't negotiate and say, hey, I'm not going to meet with them. I'll just show the houses and figure it out as I go along. That's not going to be sustainable success. That's not going to set up the client for success or meeting their expectations of what could be a very difficult process.
Yeah, you never know when you start how hard it's going to be. And so to go in blind or to sugarcoat it for a potential home buyer or home seller is not the way, because then when things do go sideways, as they often can, it's a fairly complicated process with a lot of different people, with a lot of different stakes in how it turns out. If they don't think that that's a possibility, they're going to blame someone, and it's probably not going to be themselves. And it's probably going to be the person that's supposed to be helping them. So by setting up those expectations up front, that's why I'm spending all this time educating you. That's why it's important for you to know X, Y, and Z and really think through if you even want to do this. Because if they're going to be committed to it, then I can match that commitment.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let me do some background on you. How long have you been in the business?
Since 2013.
Wow. So you're definitely in the veteran status. You've seen some things in the markets of the ups and downs.
I've seen some things, and as I often remark, is no day is the same in this job. I will learn something new every single day.
So now, what's your background? What was life before the license?
It was studying to be a history teacher. It was working in the service industry while I picked up the pieces of that dream not working out. And then it was really stumbling into it because I had read a job description that said, these are the skills you need to be a realtor. And I asked my then girlfriend, now wife, do I have these skills? And she said, yeah, you do. You should apply. And I very much lucked into the fact that the person who initially hired me ended up being a fantastic mentor. So that was a big benefit to that. Yes,
I know who you're talking about, and I agree that he is a fantastic mentor and human being. So great connecting with two amazing people, and that does help to have good mentors and colleagues and masterminds to be able to help you reach that constant improvement that I've seen throughout your whole career. So let me ask you this. Anybody who's interested in getting into business, now that you've been in it for quite a while now, what drives you? What is it about real estate that you love and you want to do it? What is the now that you can look back? What's your why moment here?
What's my why? It's good. That's what I would ask my buyer. The why for me has always been to set, and I think you had referenced this earlier with you setting yourself, challenging goals, right? And trying to meet them. The why has changed. To be frank, when it started, the why was, I want a career I can develop, period. Just like, what am I going to do with my life sort of situation, right? Found out that I had some skills that worked out for that. So then the why shifted to, okay, I want to be good enough where I'm proud of it. That was a big part of that. Can't just be mediocre, because then it's not going to be fulfilling. And, then the whole imposter syndrome will seek in even deeper than it already does. And then from a business building perspective, it's setting myself specific goals of like, okay, if I have a quote unquote good year this year, what does that mean for me personally? Because I know when I'm actually helping people buy a house, there's an altruistic element where I get to help people, but I do charge money for it. So what am I going to do with that money? And setting myself specific metrics for like this year, I'm going to, for example, in my first financial goal was to buy a condo. Just wanted to own my own place. So working towards getting to that point. My second goal was paying for a wedding. My third goal was having enough money in the bank to have kids. And then buy a house. And as each life phase for myself has changed, and what I want to get out of not only financially but then professionally, development in terms of like fulfillment has changed as I've gotten, good answer too. One sec.
That's a buyer calling him right now.
It is a buyer's agent. begging me to accept their client's offer.
Okay.
Um,
So Brendan, you saw right now, Brendan at work.
the deadline is 2 p.m. She's got time.
You know, when you think about this trajectory that you've taken from one goal to the other, you know, and as it evolves, you have accomplished everything that you just that you talked about, you know. And so now that you're a busy realtor, you're also very present and have a really good work-life balance, which a lot of realtors do not. You have a beautiful family. How many children do you have now?
Two kids.
Two or one?
Just two.
Just two. Yeah, just two. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You got a lot of work. And they're all in diapers?
4 and 2. So they're out of the diapers and into the terror.
Oh, okay, good. Those are the defining moments. Great. So how do you keep the work-life balance? You have a great life, you know, and there's many of us in the industry that do not have a good work-life balance. So does it come back to the fact that you're very structured on the front end, that you have a good balance, the client expectation is in check, they know who you are, and does it start from there, or is it something else that you bring to it to keep that good balance?
It has to start from the expectations with your clients. At the end of the day, they're the people you work for, not just with.
Right.
And like any employer, you need to make sure that the contractual agreement that you're setting up front works for both parties.
Yes.
That can be as simple as, I will tell my clients that there is a bedtime routine that takes place between about 7 o'clock and 8:30 p.m. every night. And if they can't get a hold of me during that time, that's where I am. And just so they know, so that they don't say, hey, why can't I get a hold of you then? You know, they know. And 99 times out of 100, the client is very, very happy to respect boundaries. Because if they were in my shoes or in their job, they are going to set similar boundaries with their clients or their employers. And so they want to know what your boundaries are so that they can respect them as well. And that can be as simple as like, yeah, I have a bedtime routine. So, you know, just so you know, I'm not going to be available then, most likely. It can be if, you know, I like to vacation in the fall. And so if I have clients in the fall, I'll say, hey, there's going to be a time in October, I'm going to be gone 2 weeks. I'm telling you now in August, so that if we're still working together, that's still process still going on, that you know that that's going to happen. And here's what I have set up to make sure that you still get good service, even while I'm, you know, in Italy or something.
Right.
And as long as you keep that up front and keep it transparent, they're gonna be okay with it. And it's also a self-selecting measure, because if they're not okay with it, then they were probably not going to want to work with me, and I was probably not going to want to have to accommodate whatever expectations they had. So it all ends up that everyone who's working together ends up in a happy place.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That's great advice. You know, I even in my 31 years in the business, I have had issues with work-life balance where there was just work life, you know, and you're constantly.
And this job is very much a 24/7 job. But if you tell your clients, hey, after 9 o'clock, if you have a question, you can email it to me, text it to me. I'm not going to respond, because that's time to chill with the fam, watch a movie with the wife. And I will respond to you first thing in the morning. And I tell all my clients, if you don't hear from me for 6 business hours, I might be dead in a ditch, because that is what they should expect. If they're working with me and they send me a message and a full day goes by and they don't hear from me, that is my failure. But if I hit them in that window that I told them up front, then they're going to be satisfied. They're going to say, oh, Brendan must be on showings with another client. No big deal. We'll get back.
And that is true for every aspect of our lives, in terms of the preparation, the setting the expectations, and that everybody knows what the expectations are. And And that is I think the recipe for success. Now, let me ask you this, and because I think that this is a question that a lot of people will have. We are in a highly competitive sales environment, and oftentimes it brings that person to the business that thrives in that level of competition.
Mhm.
So, how do you, a lot of people will say that everything that we've discussed now is a slowdown, kind of like downshifting the first gear before we go up to a higher gears. I'm going back to learning motorcycles, so every analogy now will be with gear shifting. So like now I'm downshifting and I'm not going as fast because I'm preparing to move forward. How do you know, there's this dichotomous feeling of saying I'm going back and I'm slowing down, and that's going to allow me to have the momentum to really achieve larger goals. But how does somebody reconcile that feeling of like, hey, I don't want to take a step back or put take the gas off the pedal? How did you find that was an issue, or that you have to think about that? And is that a scary thing for some people to say, hey, I'm not gonna go and rush to a showing. I want to have a buyer consultation first.
Yeah.
And how do you reconcile that?
I think that when you first start, you can often mistake, and I'm not the first to use this, but activity for accomplishment.
Yeah.
And being busy does not mean that you're being productive. I mean, those are very much well-known idioms, but they are true, especially in this business, because you could, and I'm so guilty of this, spending so much time doing a lot of hard work, driving all over the city, learning about properties that is completely waste of your time. That person was never going to buy, and you didn't know that because you didn't ask why. You didn't ask them if it was a fit. You just assumed because they told you, I want to see this place 6 p.m. on a Friday, you're going to show up. And that you figured, well, I'm busy because I'm there. And I learned that the hard way, and with good coaching, that was not a specifically, I don't know, viable way to take care of yourself and your business. Because at the end of the day, the burnout does not come from helping a buyer who you have really like and have get to know really well, and puts in 6 offers in a highly competitive market. That's a lot of work, and you're doing a lot of showings, but that's not what's going to burn you out, because that person, you know, every time you see them, you're both happy to see each other. Every time when they do get that place, everyone's ecstatic. So the empathy that you feel for them gets reflected back, and everyone's, like, great, we're all happy and this is good. Hard work paid off in that situation. It's when you do all the busy work that you didn't think through, that's when you're going to burn out. That's when you're going to think, I'm trying to hit the accelerator, but to use your metaphors, I'm just stalling out.
Yeah, that's right. And in a motorcycle, that's not a good thing.
Right, exactly. So
and in real estate, it's not a good thing either.
No, and if you spend a lot of time in that space, that's where you're going to leave the business, because that's when you're going to be like, I worked for 2 months as hard as I can, nothing happened. Yeah, but you didn't work on the things that were going to actually matter. And that's why. Yeah.
So we at Century 21 are very fortunate to have amazing realtors like yourself. We're proud of the work that you do, and certainly I know that there is a long list of clients throughout the years who you've helped through your due diligence and your commitment and discipline to the industry, which is, I think, anybody listening to this podcast, you just had like a mini masterclass to success. So thank you so much for joining us. And back to where we started, congratulations again on being on the top 21 list, which, just so you guys know, Brendan is no stranger to being on the top 21. It's at our company, it's a recognition that we put out every month, and Brendan is on there every month. So it's always good to see you on there. And thank you for joining us here at the Top Agent podcast. So again, thank you all for tuning in. And Brendan, keep up the great work. We're immensely proud of you.
Thanks again, Alex.